Daniela begins her story by introducing herself as a resident of Brighton Bay, a quiet coastal town nestled near the dynamic city of New York. She describes Brighton Bay as a place of tranquility, streets imbued with peace, cozy cafes offering constant solace, and the rhythmic sound of the surf providing a perpetual soundtrack to life. At 29, Daniela works as an administrator at a small hotel located right by the ocean's edge. She admits her life had been steady and largely uneventful. While some might find such a life routine, Daniela cherished its stability and predictability. She maintained a small circle of loyal friends, lived in a modest but comfortable apartment, and adhered to a familiar daily routine that offered her a sense of security and confidence in the future. Daniela wasn't seeking romantic adventures or dreaming of love. After several painful breakups in the past, she had convinced herself that solitude was a conscious choice and the best strategy for maintaining her peace of mind. However, life, as is often the case, loves to introduce its own adjustments, and fate frequently brings us together with people when we least expect it. For Daniela, that person was Michael. Michael arrived at the hotel for business. He immediately stood out from other guests with his reserved, courteous demeanor and a quiet weariness that seemed to emanate from his every movement. Daniela noticed his gentle gaze, warm, inviting smile, and calm, soft-spoken manner. When Michael approached her for check-in, she, performing her duties, helped him complete all the necessary paperwork. In return, he thanked her with such sincerity that it felt uniquely personal. Daniela couldn't help but notice how attentively Michael looked at her. There was nothing objectionable in his gaze, only kindness and genuine interest. She instinctively smiled back at him, even though she hadn't planned to. The next morning, Michael came down to the lobby and asked for directions around town. Daniela gladly shared her knowledge, telling him where to find the best coffee, which part of the beach offered peace and quiet, and which seafood restaurant was most popular with the locals. Michael listened with genuine attention. He truly listened, and Daniela found that pleasant, noting to herself that most people, unfortunately, lack this valuable ability. After that encounter, their conversations became more frequent and relaxed. Michael stayed at the hotel for 2 weeks. Each evening, after finishing his work, he would come down to the lobby and they would talk for extended periods about everything under the sun. Sometimes they would take leisurely strolls along the beach, enjoying the fresh sea air. On other days, they simply sat on a bench near the old lighthouse, watching the sunset. They shared their thoughts on life, discussed books they had read, talked about music and cherished dreams. Michael told Daniela about the stress and tension he experienced at his job in the big city. Daniela, in turn, shared her reflections on her quiet, measured life in Brighton Bay. She felt comfortable in his company, sensing that he saw the real her, understanding her without words. One evening, as they walked along the shore, admiring the starry sky and enjoying the gentle breeze, Michael unexpectedly turned to her and said, "When I'm with you, I feel at peace." These words deeply resonated with Daniela. She admits that it was that evening she began to realize she was falling in love with Michael. When Michael's 2-week stay in Brighton Bay came to an end, he left, but they continued to stay in touch. Every day, he sent her messages filled with warmth and attention. Every evening, they called each other and talked on the phone for a long time. They laughed, shared funny stories from their lives, and Daniela was surprised to discover she missed Michael more than she could have imagined. A month later, he returned. This time, he didn't stay at the hotel. He rented a small house near the harbor and invited Daniela over. They cooked dinner together, enjoying each other's company. They listened to music and danced in the kitchen as if they had known each other forever. Daniela felt truly happy. But one evening, something changed. They were sitting on the couch, drinking fragrant tea, and Daniela noticed that Michael looked serious and preoccupied. He took a deep breath and said, "Daniela, I need to tell you something." Daniela looked at him, feeling her heart begin to beat faster. "I'm married," he said, avoiding her gaze. "I have 2 children." Daniela felt her body seize with numbness. She lost her voice. Her hands instantly grew cold. She turned away from Michael, unable to look him in the eyes. "I didn't want to hide this from you," he continued, "but I didn't expect to meet you. My marriage broke a long time ago. We live in the same house, but there's no love between us anymore. We're together only for the children, nothing more." His voice was quiet and sad, but Daniela couldn't utter a word. Her thoughts raced chaotically. She abruptly stood up and went outside. The night air was cool and the sound of ocean waves reached her ears. She desperately wanted to cry. Michael followed her. "I'll understand if you don't want to see me again," he said. Daniela nodded silently and went home, feeling empty and betrayed. That night, she didn't close her eyes. Her head was filled with questions to which she could find no answers. Why hadn't he told her the truth sooner? Why had this happened to her? Yet at the same time, she couldn't forget his gaze, his words, the feeling of safety and peace she experienced when she was with him. She was confused, torn between anger and longing. The next day, she received a message from him. "I'm sorry," he wrote, "but I miss you." Daniela didn't reply. For several days, she felt lost and disoriented. She couldn't concentrate on work, constantly checking her phone, hoping to see a message from Michael. Her heart and mind waged a fierce battle. She told herself she had to forget him, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. A week later, they met again. They agreed to meet on the beach, a place associated with pleasant memories. Daniela told Michael that she was hurt and offended because he had hidden the truth from her. He replied that he understood her feelings and wasn't trying to make excuses. He simply said, "You matter to me." And then Daniela decided to stay. She wasn't going to justify herself. She had only heard him say, "You matter to me." And that was enough for her to stay. She knew she was doing wrong, anticipated judgment from others, understood she had taken the place of the other woman. But at that moment, she was driven by hope, a belief in his sincerity that this was just a temporary situation. She dreamed of the day he would leave his wife and choose her. Their secret meetings continued. Once or twice a month, he would come to Brighton Bay, staying in that modest house. She would join him after work. They shared meals, conversed, sometimes watched old films, or simply enjoyed the quiet together. Everything felt simultaneously real and like an ephemeral dream, ready to dissipate at any moment. They never appeared together in public, never held hands openly. No joint photos, romantic dates, or future plans, just fleeting moments in a secluded refuge. But in these moments, he made her feel exceptional. He listened attentively, remembered the small details she shared, helped her cook, made her smile, brought books she had only mentioned once. He made her feel loved. However, deep down, she remained connected to reality. She understood that she wasn't his priority, didn't occupy a place in his real life. She was merely an addition, something uncomplicated. Yet she couldn't bring herself to leave. Why? Perhaps because she liked how he made her feel, because she trusted him, or perhaps out of fear of being alone. Those quiet evenings in his company gave her a certain anchor, something to hold on to. Even if it caused pain, it seemed preferable to emptiness. But gradually, changes began to occur within her. Her smile no longer graced her face as often. She eagerly awaited his messages, far more than she should have. She structured her schedule around his visits, declined friends, spending evenings at home waiting for his call. Her world narrowed to the size of his presence and silence. Sometimes standing by the sea, she would ask herself, "Is this love? Or am I just losing myself?" And she would find an excuse. "I need to wait. Perhaps one day everything will change." But the doubts didn't subside. They became increasingly persistent. Weeks dragged on, and she continued to dwell in this enclosed world, waiting for Michael. Her love for him didn't wane, but something inside her was shifting. She felt a weariness that permeated not only her body, but also her soul. She was constantly in a state of waiting for messages, meetings, for a love that was hers for only a few precious hours. Sometimes he would come for the weekend and they would spend time in the small house by the harbor. They would talk, cook, embrace. But after he left, the house seemed to plunge into coldness and desolation. She would look around and see only her belongings. He never left anything behind. No clothes, no photographs, not the slightest trace of his presence. It seemed he led a double life, and in one of them, there was no place for her. She tried to convince herself that love required patience, that his feelings for her were sincere. Perhaps they were. But he invariably returned to his family, his children, to a life in which there was no designated place for her, and she began to wonder, why was she allowing this to continue? One night, after he had left, she sat by the window and watched the rain. A thought struck her. What am I doing with my life? She loved a man who couldn't give her his whole heart, always keeping her in a secondary role. But she also had her own dreams of a home, a child, a man who would choose her every single day. Instead, she was surrounded by empty rooms and quiet nights. A growing feeling inside her told her she deserved more, but fear gripped her. She was afraid of losing him, afraid of loneliness. Deep down, a hope for change lingered, that one day he would come to her and say, "I've left, I'm here, only for you." But that day never came. She shared her struggles with Naina, her close friend, the only one who knew the truth. She told her about her weariness, sadness, and confusion. "You deserve to be first, Daniela," Naina said. "You should be with someone who is proud to love you, someone who walks with you in the sunlight, not hiding in the shadows." Naina's words resonated deeply. Daniela began to notice how much she had changed. Joy had left her. She stopped going out, constantly checking her phone. She abandoned her favorite activities, reading by the sea, walks in the park, meeting friends. Her world had become tiny, and she herself had allowed it to happen. One evening, Michael arrived again. He smiled, brought flowers, and gently kissed her forehead. He acted as if everything was fine, but she remained silent. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she replied. He was surprised by her words. "Why now?" "Because I feel like I'm not living my own life," she explained. "I'm living in your shadow, waiting for your visits, your calls, your words, but I'm always waiting. I want more. I need more. I need more. I crave more," he said, with undisguised longing in his voice. The man fell silent, lost in thought, and after some time said, "Daniela, I love you. You know that, right?" "If that's true, why don't you choose me?" she asked hopefully. He looked away, avoiding her direct gaze. "It's not as simple as it seems. I have children, a family, obligations. Who am I to you?" she whispered softly, feeling her heart clench in pain. "Just a secret," came the reply, like a punch to the gut. He didn't have the courage to add anything else. That night, tears once again soaked her pillow, but this time the reason wasn't his cruelty. On the contrary, he had been gentle and caring. The true reason lay in the realization of a bitter truth: he would never leave. Not for her, not for anyone else. After their meeting, she didn't text or call him. She needed time to sort out her feelings and thoughts. Every morning before starting her workday, she found solace in walking on the beach. She let the gentle sea breeze caress her face, gazed at the endless waves, and reflected on her life. What did she truly want? What brought her true happiness? Gradually, memories of her former self began to resurface. The girl who enjoyed long walks, meeting friends for coffee, and reading books by a cozy fireplace. She yearned for that carefree and happy version of herself. Thoughts of love also lingered. What should true love be like? Not just fleeting gestures and passionate kisses, but a partner ready to stand openly by her side, proudly declaring, "You are mine," without fear or doubt. With Michael, she didn't feel that certainty. Every evening, she began to write her thoughts and feelings in a notebook. This process helped her understand her true desires and aspirations. With each filled page, she felt herself growing stronger and more confident. Michael continued to send messages. I miss you. I think about you constantly. Can I see you? But she didn't reply, understanding she needed time. A week later, he appeared at her doorstep. She was surprised, but still invited him in. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see you, he said, his voice anxious. You've been silent. I've been thinking, she replied. He sank into a chair. About us? Yes, she confirmed. About everything. They talked for a long time, and she frankly told him about her feelings, about the agonizing waiting, about the role of the other woman, and about gradually losing herself. I can't do this anymore, she stated. I love you, and perhaps always will, but I need a full life. I want to be with someone who can give me their whole heart, not just a part of it. Sadness etched his face. I can't leave them, Daniela. I've tried to imagine it, but I can't do that to my children. She nodded, understanding him, but at the same time realizing this was the end of their relationship. I hope you find peace, she said. I hope we both do. He rose from the chair and hugged her. I'm sorry, he whispered, and then left. It was their last meeting. That night, tears flowed again, but these were different tears. The pain was real, yet at the same time pure, like a deep breath after holding it for a long time. The next morning, she went to the sea again. She stood on the shore for a long time watching the waves. The sky was clear and the wind was soft and gentle. She felt something she hadn't felt in many months: peace. She knew the healing process would take time, but she also knew she had taken the first step. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't waiting for messages or checking her phone. She simply stood alone with herself, and that was enough. Months passed since she said goodbye to Michael. At first, the days felt endlessly long and hard. She missed him, his smile, his hugs, the little things that connected them. Sometimes in the mornings, she'd feel an urge to call him, and at night she'd cry in bed, clutching her pillow and remembering his voice. But gradually, everything began to change. She started spending more time with friends again. Nena invited her for coffee every weekend. They talked, laughed, and sometimes just sat in silence, enjoying each other's company. It was good to be surrounded by people who loved her for who she was, without secrets or lies. She also returned to her old hobbies. She started reading books again, touching stories of love and hope. Every evening she walked on the beach, watched the sunset, and listened to the sound of the waves. The sea always calmed her, reminding her that life goes on no matter what. She also started working towards her goals. She signed up for a class at the community center, something simple related to storytelling. She didn't tell many people about it. She just wanted to try something new for herself. Every week, she wrote a few pages about her thoughts and dreams. Writing felt good. It helped her heal. One evening, after class, she was walking home and stopped at the corner bookstore. She hadn't been there in a long time. Inside, she saw a man looking at travel books. He smiled when he saw her, and she smiled back. He seemed familiar, but she couldn't remember where they had met before. He approached her and said, "Hi, you're in the writing class, right?" She nodded. "Yes," he replied. "I just joined last week. My name is David." They talked a bit about the class, about books, about the cold weather. Nothing special, but something in his voice made her feel at ease. The next week, he was next to her in class, and afterward, they went to a small cafe nearby. During their casual conversation, they talked about family, work, and favorite foods. He proved to be an attentive and sensitive listener, never looking away, which helped Daniela feel calm and confident. Their post-class meetings became regular, sometimes over coffee, sometimes during a short walk. He wasn't overly curious about her past and didn't pressure her, showing patience and understanding. One evening, sitting on a wooden bench by the coast as the sky turned orange and the air grew cool, she decided to confide in him. "Can I tell you something?" After he agreed, she spoke about her past relationship, where she was the other woman. about the pain and the long wait. She firmly stated she didn't want to repeat that experience. After a short pause, he thanked her for her honesty and expressed his conviction that she deserved better. That evening, Daniela felt a pleasant warmth in her chest, caused not so much by nascent love as by the feeling of being understood and accepted. Time passed, and her interactions with David became richer. Shared walks, watching movies, and talking about dreams brought them closer. He didn't rush things or demand more than she could give. Smiles and laughter returned to her life along with a sense of freedom. One day, looking in the mirror, she saw her true self reflected. Not a sad girl waiting for messages, nor a woman mourning her loneliness, but a strong, gentle, and vibrant Daniela. David entered her life gradually, like the sun rising after a long night. He didn't try to change her, he simply was there, showing by example what true love could be. One evening, watching children play in the park, she asked, "Do you ever want a family?" To which he replied, "Yes, someday, with the right person." This short dialogue needed no further elaboration. Daniela now realized that love shouldn't be a source of pain, suffering, and secrets. True love brings a feeling of safety and peace, like coming home. Looking back, she had no regrets about the past, for it had taught her valuable lessons. She understood that love without respect wasn't enough, and waiting for someone who couldn't choose her would only lead to disappointment. She realized that no one could give her inner peace. She had to find it herself. And now, peace, hope, and love reigned in her soul, but not from someone who hid her, but from someone who walked hand in hand with her. If asked if it was all worth experiencing, she would answer affirmatively, for it was through sadness and disappointment that she was able to find herself and open the door to a new, better love, the one she truly deserved.